pull up a chair, have a seat. Welcome to the Round Table of Wraith. Today's discussion is going to be all about Levia. If you know anything about me, I've enjoyed playing Levia. Well, I enjoyed maybe, I don't know if that's the right word, but I've been playing Levia since the beginning of the Monarch release. I was really interested in her mechanic. I wanted to see how it played, and I never really played Brute prior. And I've found this character extremely fascinating because in all of my TCG experience, I've never had a more fun yet maddening experience trying to figure out how to build this character the right way in Classic Constructed and really settle on a deck of cards that I feel works. And I like that because there seems to be various ways to build Levia, and I don't know if the right answer has been discovered yet. I'm really unsure on that. And so what I feel like I wanted to do was make a video series just kind of talking about my experiences with her, what I've learned so far, and open it up for suggestions and comments because I want to make this character as strong as we can possibly make her and as consistent as we can possibly make her. And I've had some success. I've had some struggles. But I want your help along the way as I give you guys my lessons in Levia. All right, let's take a look at my current list. So, as of right now, I run the Ravenous Meat Axe. And that's because I like that it helps fill my graveyard. And through the early stages of the game, I do enjoy swinging with the Meat Axe. Hopefully getting that 5 damage because a lot of our cards are going to be 6 power. And the Hexagore seems interesting, right? Like if you played a super control and you're blocking like crazy and then you start to banish cards using her, Blood Debt mechanic or her own cards mechanic. And then eventually you're going to be able to get 2 action points, play a card, and swing the Hexagore for 6. And 2 for 6 sounds really good. But I think throughout the course of the game, to be able to block with early, like block with 1 or 2 cards, maybe play a card and swing the Meat Axe, or just swing the Meat Axe and fill your graveyard up a little more. I want to know what the difference is of waiting to get that 2 for 6 instead of just either tripping away with a 3 or a 5 more consistently. So I think we lose damage throughout the course of the game by not if taking a swing and making the opponent take some damage. Chances are they'll either block with 1 card because they'll be up on the tempo and they see you blocking so much, or they'll just take the damage. So as of right now, I've been running the Meat Axe. If you found a way to make the Hexagore work, I'd love to hear it. And then, other than that, the equipment setup is pretty self-explanatory. Nothing I need to go over, aside from the fact that in 95% of the games that I play, I've switched over to the Scabskin Leathers because trying to get the 2 action points a turn is too pivotal for this character, especially later in the game, to push through damage if your cards don't have go again. And sometimes our tall attacks aren't really that tall. Some of the buff cards that we have options from are weird, like cards that increase damage by 3 or 4 or whatever it may be. So going wide at the end of the game seems like the right move, playing a bigger attack card and then maybe swinging the weapon. So I use the pants, which then means in 95% of my games I use the Gambler's Gloves. The original build that I had of this deck was way more Shadow Brute oriented. And what I mean by that is, like, I was looking for cards that turned off Blood Debt, cards that did 6 power, and you know, just the typical Shadow Brute mechanic. Banish 3, have Blood Debt on them, so you accumulate that Blood Debt, you block early, and then you kind of attack later. And the problem I was finding was that, like, in the early game of, like, being controlled or playing control, I was finding myself, like, I didn't feel like I was doing enough. And even still, with, like, so many cards that were able to turn off Blood Debt, I would find myself later in the game in a situation where I had, like, 12 or more Blood Debt, right? And if I drew into the wrong hand that I wasn't able to turn off Blood Debt, then it's like basically the game is, like, over, and you've just blown your chance. So I then started to think to myself, like, okay, well, my original criteria for choosing a card to go into the deck was, does it have 6 attack power? Does it turn off Blood Debt? What is the pitch/cost? And did it block? And so, did it block? Did it turn off Blood Debt? What was the pitch/cost? And was it 6 power? And a lot of these Brute cards, or Shadow Brute cards, don't block. And so there'd be times when I would need to block, and I couldn't get the block in, and you die. You can't, once you start accumulating that Blood Debt, you can't efficiently block and then on your turn pass. Like the conventional character has the luxury of going, okay, their opponent hits their you know, their combo or whatever they need, and you can spend your whole hand blocking. Levia can't do that late game, because then if you don't turn off Blood Debt, you suffer the damage. And if the way I was building it was I had a lot of cards that were, you know, with Blood Debt on them. So I was just finding myself either, like, not being able to close out the game late, sometimes killing myself to Blood Debt, and then thinking to myself, like, why does this character have this problem where, sure, some of the cards are stronger and their cost curve is less, but it doesn't seem like the mechanic of having that Blood Debt, needing to be able to turn it off, basically didn't allow you to stop your opponent from doing something that could, you know, crush you, like not Bravo type crush, but just crush your game plan later, because you were damned if you did. If you blocked out, then you were damned by the Blood Debt, and then if you didn't, you were damned because you took the damage from your opponent's attack or whatever they were trying to do. So then I was like, okay, I want to switch over to like a hybrid mode where it was Brute cards and Shadow Brute cards, and I really had to keep track of, like, okay, how many cards in this deck have 6 power? How many cards in this deck turn off Blood Debt? How many cards in this deck block? And how many cards in this deck pitch for yellow or blue? And I wanted to switch to the hybrid because I felt like I needed to apply pressure earlier in the game that allowed me to then late game maybe not have so much Blood Debt, to where if something shitty happened and I couldn't turn off Blood Debt that turn, maybe I would take 6 or less, not a massive amount. And so that style of trying to go like this, the pure Shadow Brute route, like all the Boneyard Marauders, all the Dread Screamers, and I just felt like it didn't work. It just couldn't work. And so now I'll scroll down. Here's my current like list with Levia, and I'm not saying it's like right, because I like want help and I want us to figure this out, but this is where I'm at currently. It plays like a brute, or what I try to do is play like traditional brute early in the game, and then try to switch over to kind of like shadow brute in the later game. And so what you're going to see here is a combination of like traditional brute cards. You got your barraging beatdowns, pulpings, massacre, beast within, blood rush bellow, barraging bighorn, smash instinct, riled up, reckless swing, wrecker romp, mixed with a handful, nowhere near as many blood debt cards as I had before. So you have just the Boneyard Marauders red, which are just the 6s. Just the Dread Screamers red, which are just the 6 attacks. 3 red Writhing Beast Hulks, 6 attack. Mark of the Beast, 6 attack. Hungering Slaughter Beast, yellow, 6 attack. Deadwood Rumbler blue, 6 attack. Her Soul Harvest card. And you'll see, like, I stopped using her Majestics aside from Mark of the Beast long ago, even during the regular build. Like, I just didn't see the value in not being able to block. It didn't serve the purpose of like being a control player, and they're not that good. Like, just straight up, they're not that good. The Shadow of Blasphemous hitting a card off the top. If you're trying to like always turn off Blood Debt, you're gonna have some of those not be a 6 power attack. So then, like, that didn't even guarantee it would turn off your Blood Debt. And then if it did, you would search and find a Deep-Rooted Evil, which for 3 cost out of your Banished Zone, you're going to do 6. And usually if you have 2 action points, you'd much rather... It's easier to afford swinging the Meat Axe than it is to say, okay, I'm going to pay 3 for 6. 3 for 6 feels like shit. In this game, 3 for 6 is awful. There's like... Warrior can get to 6 damage by swinging the Dawnblade in one card. So they can get... They're 2 for 6. Or sometimes 1 for 6 if the buffer card's a 0. And so 3 for 6 felt like shit. So Deep-Rooted Evil, in my opinion, sucks. Doesn't block. Sure, it pitches for yellow. But you have to either play it or like get the Meat Axe to get it in your graveyard to even have the ability, and then the ability's not that good. And then Shadow of Blasphemous, trash, pitches for 1, doesn't block, maybe will turn off Blood Debt, 6 attack. If you don't have Go Again, that's trash, dude. It's not good enough. A 6 power attack is good enough to put on pressure early. It does nothing for you later. And when you banish a card and you start your Blood Debt train early, it's a pain in the ass. You feel like you have to keep attacking every turn. And the way that this game works is it's not conducive of the strategy that, okay, I've started attacking, now I'm going to continue to attack, so go ahead and do what you want to me and advance your game plan. I'm just going to sit here and even if I have a great defense reaction, I got to pay for it, and I might not be able to turn off Blood Debt on my turn. Just stupid. So that leads me to end rant. That leads me to where I'm at now with 6 barraging beatdowns, a 0 for +4, +3, makes them either block with 2 cards, and intimidates is great. Boneyard Marauder for when you do need to turn off Blood Debt is a 1 coster for 6. So when you have 2 action points, you've rolled the pants, or however you have your extra action point, it feels easy to do. And then when you banish cards, you're probably not banishing cards with as many Blood Debt keywords. So chances are you banish 3 to play it, but you don't have that Blood Debt then to deal with. I think you want to sprinkle that Blood Debt into your banish zone rather than like know that Blood Debt is going to be there. So At least that's where I'm at, like, right now with my mentality. 3 Command and Conquers, they speak for themselves. 6 power, best card, one of the best cards in the game. 3 red Dread Screamers. I used to play all 6 of these because I felt like any amount of 5 go again or 4 go again or 6 go again was good. But now I don't want to deal with the non-6s. I just want the 6 power attacks. So I opted out of it. In my sideboard, I run 2 Guardian of the Shadow Realms. It is actually, after I started playing it, I didn't hate it as much as I originally, like my initial reactions to this card. There are times when, like, you might have 2 action points, or 3 if the pants roll a 6, and you do something, and you pay 2 to get it back into your hand, and then you can arsenal it after you end your turn. It's not the worst. Art of War speaks for itself. One of the best cards in the game. Does everything we need it to do. Pulping is excellent. It's one of the few cards I run that doesn't have a block value. Art of War obviously doesn't, and Pulping doesn't. I think every other card in here, except for Doomsday, and Tyrlin from Limb, and the 3 Deadwood Rumblers. Look at it. So we have a majority of cards that block, but some that are just too high or provide something for our game plan that are too good to not include. Pulping is excellent, especially if we hit the 6 off the top and it gains that Dominate, then it basically gains that Go Again. Shadow Puppetry, insane. +1 Go Again on any card, doesn't even have to be Shadow. Outstanding. Writhing Beast Hulk has Dominate, that's great. Massacre is outstanding. 3 for 6 feels like shit, but there are times when you will get that. If you have discarded a card with 6 or more power this turn, Massacre gains +2 and Intimidate. You can get that clause to hit. And Mark of the Beast, amazing. It feels like shit when you hit it off for the top with the Meat Axe, and then you got to start dealing with Blood Debt every turn. And then, like, blocking with it feels awkward because then it goes to the Banish Zone and you got to start dealing with Blood Debt then the following turns. Beast Within is cool. Yellow pitch value, that's important. Blood Rush Bellow, this is interesting. This is in my sideboard, and I feel like I usually include 2 in some matchups if I play all 3. But, I mean, it seems like it's too good to not, right? The drawing 2 cards, especially if you, like, know your hand and you can guarantee you're going to discard a 6. Seems like it's too good to not play. I used to play the Red Hungering Slaughter Beast for 2 for 7, but it has Blood Debt on it, and I forget. I've gone through this so many times and changed this so many times that I think I was, like, looking at reds and thinking, like, okay, if I had all 6 of those, that's 6 cards. That's 3 more cards that need me to banish 3 to play. And if I'm doing this, like, hybrid model, I don't know. I just opted to not do it. I wanted, like, cheap. I think, like, the 2 for 6 Dominate on Writhing feels good because it dominates. 1 for 6 on Boneyard is super cost efficient. 2 for 6 on Dread Screamer, it has Go Again, pretty much. Like, you're going to get it. 2 for 6 Dominate with Go Again on Pulping. Massacre's high upside if you can meet the text qualifications. High upside. Whereas, like, the Red Hungering Slaughter Beast was like, okay, it's like 2 for 7. Was 1 more than 6. But I don't want to pay 2. It just doesn't seem like it's a... If my turn is just playing a Hungering Slaughter Beast, and I don't think it, like, does enough. If you were playing more of, like, the traditional, like, Levia, I would run all reds and yellows. Barraging Bighorn, yellow pitch, blocks for 3, 6 attack. Can potentially gain Go Again if they don't defend with, if they don't defend with 2 cards from their hand, non-equipment cards or whatever. It doesn't have to be from their hand, but just don't defend with 2 cards. So that's good. Smash Instant can be played 3 for 6, Intimidate. We rock Doomsday, even though, like, It's a lot less likely to happen in this version. It still could happen, and I think it's too good to not try to get it to happen. It's blue pitch at the end of the day, worst case scenario. Sure, it doesn't block, but the high upside of possibly getting it to go off. And then we got unmovables that I sideboard in for some of those pesky warrior matchups. Blue Deadwood Rumblers, they help advance our game plan. It's a blue pitch for 6. The only downside is it doesn't block, but that's okay. It meets 3 of the other criteria we're looking for. Pitches for 3, does 6, could potentially turn off Blood Debt due to the text box. Riled Up is just another card where you can pay 3, do 6 damage, and if you've discarded a card with 6 or more this turn, it gains +1. And blocks for 3. So I think like main factors of liking Riled Up is if it's a 6 attack and it pitches for 2. Kind of like the Hungering Slaughter Beast like convo of like the 7 for 2. It pitches red, which makes it a pain because you do need resources in this deck, especially if you're rolling the pants to try to do 2 things in a turn. Soul Harvest is awesome. It doesn't even matter if you don't like to play it. It's just blue 6, block 3. It has 3 of the 4 criteria we already like, and then it could potentially turn off Blood Debt. Yeah, you have to banish 6 cards, which is a lot, but you gotta like it. Even though it costs 6, you probably don't play it in like 90% of the matchups you have, but I think you have to just play it. You have to include it in your deck because of all the qualifications that it meets. Tearlim from Limb is interesting. I've like gotten it off a lot, and then sometimes I think to myself like it's not worth it. Like, okay, yeah, I'm probably gonna get +6. Almost every card in my deck has a 6 power, so chances are I'm going to get a +6 on my next attack, and then doing sure like a 12 or a 13 with the potential another action point is amazing. But the setup for this takes a while. You have to pay 2 to do it. You draw, you discard random, and then you have to have resources for then your next attack action card, your next brute attack action card. So it's a lot to work with, and drawing this at the wrong time in the game feels like shit. I'm not sure if I like love it in every matchup. I might start saving it and pitching it and like and seeing if I can get it off later in a game, and not when I draw it, not like solely focusing on like setting it up. Wrecker Romp, amazing, blue 6, blocks for 3. Only thing it doesn't do is turn off Blood Debt. And then Reckless Swing as a blue defense reaction that hopefully you can always get the claws to do 2 damage back to them. It costs a card out of your hand to do that, but it's really good that it's a blue defense reaction that blocks for 4 and maybe does 2 damage back to them. So this is where I'm like currently at. And like as I'm looking at it now, maybe I don't have enough cards that, Shadow Brute cards. But when I think of like Endless Maw, let's use Endless Maw for example. If I draw Endless Maw early, it's a red pitch. It could be a 9, but I have to banish 3 cards. And geez, I like it. It costs a lot. I really like the card. I don't know what I would take out for it. It would have to be like one of these yellow like generics, like either like Riled Up or Barraging Bighorn. And so like I am open for those discussions and talks. But let me end this Levia rant with saying, when I try to just remember, when you try to build her, think about like the 4 main cornerstones of 6 power. Does it block? Does it turn off Blood Debt? And what is it pitch/cost? Is it cost/pitch like worth it or efficient? So if you can keep those in mind, and then like try to sprinkle in your non-6s, your Shadow Puppetries, your Art of Wars, your Doomsday, any defense reactions, tear limb from limb. Your non-6s, your barraging bighorns, your buffer cards. That's a risk, right? Anytime you do that, when you go like a heavy blood deck concept to like have a non-6 and then potentially a card that doesn't turn off blood debt, that's a risk. And I don't know if the risk is better than the reward. I don't feel like she has any cards that make me go, wow, this is worth almost killing myself in the late game to have this card. Because even if you do get off like an Endless Maw for 9, it's like there's a lot of characters that can get to 6, 7, 8, 9 pretty easy or more cost efficient that doesn't have to worry about blood debt. So I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'm open to suggestions. I want to keep building and making this character work. The more I play with this deck, the more feedback I'll give to you. I know this is like video number 1, but I shit you not when I say I've probably like built, taken down, and rebuilt this deck 15 times over the course of Monarch's release. Of where I've started with her to where I am, to what style I'm trying to do of Levia or Levia. So, yep. I don't know if anything I said made any sense or if it helped anybody at all, but I'm going to keep making these because I like this character and I want to see her do well. So, thank you for having a seat at the table with me today, and take care. Jim is peacing out.